do we progress this? Can we get through?
We could just
Jake's already on it.
note the meeting.
Jake's already. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jake. Okie dokie. Next we'll hear from Gavin Threadgold, Canterbury Horticultural Society Board Member, and Ben Adler, Enviro Hub Manager, who will speak regarding item 9, the new lease to the Canterbury Horticultural Society. Welcome.
Mayor and councillors, tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Gavin Threadgold, a board member of the Canterbury Horticultural Society. Next to me is Ben Adler, the manager of Christchurch Enviro Hub. He will speak more about Enviro Hub soon. I'd like to acknowledge our supporters in the gallery today, including the President and Manager of the CHS and the Friends of the Botanic Gardens. I'd just like to highlight the Friends, who have a membership of around 200 volunteers who contribute to the Botanic Gardens, support councils, gardens staff, open the kiosk for 2 days a week and run public-facing activities including tours, displays, events and meetings. All of these activities rely on the kiosk as a base. The tea kiosk is an extremely high-profile council facility in the Botanic Gardens in Christchurch, the Garden City. It receives very high levels of foot traffic from Christchurch residents and domestic and international tourists. I led the strategic planning and development of the Society's strategic plan, which was attached to the kiosk lease renewal application. You'll find that on pages 170 to 188 of your agenda. We believe we, with our partner organisations and networks, bring an unparalleled depth and breadth of environmental and horticultural presence to this high-profile location. Along with our keystone partners, we provide a wide range of services and opportunities to Christchurch communities. We are the logical tenant for the kiosk. We believe our activities support several council strategies, policies and declarations. Amongst these, they include the 2000 Social Wellbeing Policy, the 2008 Sustainability Policy, the 2014 Food Resilience Policy, the 2017 Health Food Action Plan, and of course the 2019 Climate Emergency Declaration. If you want more details on how we believe we're contributing to that, that's contained within our application. We also believe our collective activities support draft community outcomes in Council's proposed long-term plan, particularly the collaborative confidence city outcome. We will be able to give residents opportunities to participate in community activities related to the environment and horticulture in a high-profile central city location. Also, the Green Livable City outcome. We're all working to reduce emissions, build climate change resilience, protect and regenerate the environment, increase biodiversity and support greater tree canopy coverage. I'd just briefly like to share 2 programs. Firstly, we run an Orchard in Schools program that has currently established 41 orchards in schools around Christchurch, and this is to educate the children in the process of organic fruit production. This project has been a success and the number of schools are expected to grow. Secondly, an exciting new opportunity, the Balcony Dwellers program. This just started last weekend and has been delivered by the Society President. It is focused on how we adapt to change by growing food at home in smaller urban residences such as townhouses and apartments, a direct response to housing densification and the cost of living crisis. I'd now like to hand over to our partner Ben from Enviro Hub.
Kia ora everyone. I'm just talking to you a little bit about what Christchurch Enviro Hub does. So I'll just skip a few slides. The main aspects of us is we're here to connect, support, educate and inspire those working in the environmental sector, specifically in the non-for-profit realm as well. So we do this by providing a variety of digital and physical services. One of those is the digital map and directory, which showcases all the organisations working in Christchurch in the environmental space. So there's over 345 listings on our map, and the idea of this is that we help others connect with each other and be aware of the work and the mahi that's being present in Christchurch at the moment. So this is a way for people to connect and also show some of the work that they're doing. We do impact stories as well, so this is kind of giving a Christchurch Enviro Hub lens on the work that's occurring in Christchurch so we can tell the stories of the groups that are doing the fantastic mahi in Christchurch. We do an eco events calendar, so this is to centralise events happening in Christchurch so people are aware of what's going on, if they can collaborate with another person, and any other existing events that occur. This is community-led, so people send in their events to us, and it's done through Facebook events. So on this listing, in this image, you've got about 120 on there, so it clearly gets used. We do an eco-funding calendar as well, because there's a lot of funding available in Christchurch, but it's hard to understand where all the funding pools come from, so we create a calendar to help those working in the environmental sector to know whether they can apply. The Te Tuna Taone is an in-school action learning program that we run. It's an educational program empowering... I think I ran out of time, but I'll go on to the next one. And then we've got Christchurch Enviro Kids, which is a weekly event that happens on Saturday, and that's to empower the community to be in contact with the organisations working in Christchurch through an activity based on their work. So we collaborate with different organisations each week. The Stormwater Super Trailer, that's a behaviour change conversation platform. So basically this is a resource we take out to events in the community, but also to commercial sites like Rickerton Mall or Maitatin, and we have behaviour change conversations with the community around the topic of stormwater and contamination, and we do this through entertainment, games, and just fostering conversation. We also host a variety of events to connect the community. So some of the ones to highlight are Green Drinks, which is similar to EnviroKids, how we collaborate with different organisations in the environmental space, giving them a platform to speak to the mahi that they do, but also for people to come along, have a networking session, have a drink. We do the Environmental Network Gathering, which we do twice a year. This is a way to celebrate the community's work and all that we're doing, and for people to come together, have a potluck, and just have a conversation and talk to the mahi that they're achieving. Submission workshops as well. This is a way to be a mediator between government policy and submission process for people, those people that don't understand how to do submissions, but also for those that do, to work together so they can share ideas and generate an outcome. Casual Couch Corridor, that's an opportunity to come speak to me about the environmental sector. We're a networking organisation, so there's a lot I can offer and share to those that are interested. So I've gone through those. And then we have the shared spaces. So the idea of this is that we're trying to showcase the shared spaces available in Christchurch. So the kiosk is one of them. There's a few others that we hope to bring on to our shared space category. And the Revolution Eco Hub is featured in there as well. Some of the other things that we hope to achieve by the end of this year are a marketing buyers group, so that we can help support those groups working in Christchurch by providing marketing, a marketing team person to help do their marketing for them, and additionally to do subsector strategy events where we connect those working in certain sectors of the environmental sector, so such as water, food, waste, and bring them all together so we can have a strategic meeting about where we want to go as a collective. And yeah, other areas we work on is working towards getting corporate sponsorship and providing a corporate service for groups to use to get more in touch with the environmental sector.
Cool. And just as we close, I'd like to draw your attention to the external drivers that we've outlined on page 172 of the agenda. You'll see many familiar terms that we're all grappling with: cost of living, an ageing population, loneliness, well-being, climate change, biodiversity, food production, densification and water infrastructure. The greatest challenge ahead for Christchurch communities is adapting to change. Renewing the kiosk lease for the Canterbury Horticultural Society is going to ensure that a wide variety of horticultural and environmental opportunities remain available for residents in this high-profile community location through our organisations and networks. Ngā mihi nui.
Thank you very much. Fantastic presentation. Councillor Kewen.
I look at all your programs and they're fantastic. One that has always surprised me that hasn't been done would be an outreach into people, especially in social housing, state houses and so forth. I, as a child, spent 5 years in one, surrounded by quarter acres, almost known with a veggie patch or a fruit tree. Mm. Even if someone had knocked on our door and had a thing of seedlings and said, plant these and you'll have food in your garden in 6 months, we were a bit useless, and so we just didn't do it. It is super simple, but you need to take people over the line and introduce them to it. Have you considered something like that? There's a ton of land not being used that can produce. I do now, but I'm a different person than I was then. And
absolutely, I think that's on the radar for us and the type of work we want to be doing. Our third priority that we've identified is adapting to change for the Horticultural Society, and that's exactly the sort of project we want to get into, as well as the like that our president, Alan, is running on balcony dwellers, you know, the small spaces with apartments and balconies. You haven't got much space, you've got no topsoil, but how can you maximise growing some food in that space? And I think opportunities to get out and increase
our community
Christchurch.
board area has a lot of social housing, all board areas do.
Yep.
But come and talk to our board. We'd be keen to partner up and try and make something happen.
Yep, we'd certainly be keen to have those discussions.
Thank you.
Councillor Johansson, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the work that you do and for the presentation. Just given how much you're doing, I just kind of wondered if you were short on space or whether the space is adequate.
Yes and no. Certainly the kiosk is very well utilised across ourselves and via our hub and the Friends of the Botanic Gardens. We have been working with the Otakaro Orchard facility in town as well, and we've contributed some of the finances towards getting that facility established, and we're looking to utilise that. We also use Avery House and Richmond Community Gardens, so we're really trying to establish a number of properties that we can use for different things, but the kiosk is, you know, the heart and the core of the presence that we'd like to have.
Okay, thanks. Just the reason for asking was we've got the old visitor information centre just sitting there as well with no use. So I just wondered if just particularly at the Botanic Gardens, whether you were constrained for space for the programs that you do there. That sounds like you've got adequate space.
For now, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We've run out of time, but you don't need to convince me on what you do down there. I've been down and seen it for myself, so well done, you guys. Okie dokie. So now we have next, I'd like to welcome Michael Apathy on behalf of Climate Liberation Aotearoa, who will speak regarding item 8 and the international aviation and cruise ship emissions. Welcome.
Thank you. Kia ora katoa, koutou katoa. Thanks for hearing from us. I'm speaking for Climate Liberation Aotearoa. When I'm not working on climate issues, I work as a psychotherapist. And particularly when I'm working with youth, I know it's really important that they can look forward to a life worth living. So that's part of why I'm here talking with you about the climate and cruise ships today. Before we get to the emissions inventory itself, I want to deal with the idea that cruise ships bring us some benefits, because actually exactly the opposite is the case. And everything that I say here today will be backed up by evidence, good statistics or peer-reviewed academic papers, which we're showing the references for. Tourism overall, of course, employs people and supports our economy. But according to the New Zealand Institute of Economic Research, most tourist spending is domestic, not international tourism like the cruise ships. Domestic tourists spend roughly 58% versus 42% international tourism. Now, only 9% of those international tourists are cruise ship passengers, so we're talking about a small slice of tourist spending. The important statistic that I really want you to remember is that despite being 9% of the international tourist numbers, cruise ship passengers contribute only 3% of international tourist spending. So cruise ship passengers dramatically underspend in terms of their contribution to our economy compared to the alternative when tourists instead choose to fly in. This is according to the most recent statistics we have from 2019, but we know this pattern won't have changed because it's actually baked into the business model of the cruise ship industry. The cruise industry doesn't make money on the ticket. They make money through the passengers doing the vast majority of their spending by paying the cruise company, for instance, dining on board the cruise ships, where it doesn't benefit our communities at all. You might have the idea that the cruise industry is a kind of luxury experience, where you'd expect cruise passengers to be spending lots in our stores or restaurants. But according to Otago University tourism professor James Higham, this isn't the case. I quote, "One of the realities of the cruise industry is that it's grown very rapidly over the last decade or so. The profile of passengers has changed from relatively small numbers of very wealthy passengers to a large number of less affluent passengers. I think the concern that's increasingly widely expressed is that many cruise passengers are booked on board to shore excursions that are basically operated by the cruise company and actually spend very little discretionary time or money shopping in local communities. End quote. So you've heard that the cruise ship industry takes as much of the passenger spending as possible, and they don't share the benefits in the same way that other forms of tourism do. For instance, the cruise industry is built on massive tax evasion. This is widely reported, but the following information is from TaxWatch UK. By incorporating in places such as Panama and Liberia, cruise ship companies avoid tax, on average paying just 0.8% tax. So please don't think for a moment that our economy is reliant on or benefits from the cruise ship industry, when cruise ship tourists are economically the worst sorts of tourists for us, and would be far better off when tourists choose to fly instead of cruise. So hopefully I've dealt with the idea that cruise ships benefit us. What are the negatives of cruise ships? Otago University academic Dr. Inga Smith calculated that a cruise ship holiday to New Zealand emits 4 times the greenhouse gas emissions of an equivalent holiday flying and staying in hotels. She says from a climate change perspective, going on a cruise ship is one of the worst holidays that you can take. The cruise ship industry is so polluting that climate activists like me would actually encourage people to fly instead. Cruise ship passengers cause other air pollution too. The heavy fuel oil that they burn puts small ultrafine particulates into our air that are carcinogenic. In terms of these polluting small particulates, one cruise ship is actually the equivalent of 1 million cars. It's ultrafine, mostly invisible, so we don't think about it, but the cost that we're paying is very, very real. It's the cost paid when people die from cancer, from air pollution caused by fossil fuels. According to the British Medical Journal, fossil fuel pollution kills 5 million people per year annually. They're poisoning the passengers, they're poisoning the Littleton community, and wafting that poison over the hills into the rest of our city too. According to a peer-reviewed study in the Marine Policy Journal, cruise ships are responsible for 1/4 of all ocean waste, despite being only 1% of the merchant fleet. This is a huge problem because our ocean ecosystems are under massive pressure and hundreds of millions of people rely on ocean ecosystems for food. According to Angela Tuberga, a professor of tourism at the University of Palmas in Brazil, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week for very low pay are normal working conditions on cruise ships. Cubans are a big part of the cruise ship workforce, with some of the biggest cruise companies putting them in conditions that have been described by human rights organizations and members of the European Parliament as semi-slavery. So cruise ships are terrible for workers' rights. So in summary, not only do cruise ships bring us no benefits, but they're contributing to climate chaos, they're killing people with air pollution, they trash our oceans, and their working conditions can be as bad as semi-slavery. I'll hand over to Chris.
I'm Chris Allen. I'm a student and activist studying at the University of Canterbury. The fact that cruise ship emissions are now being counted in the inventory is a great first step, but it accomplishes nothing on its own. We demand that they also be included in Christchurch's total emissions, the ones that count towards our emissions targets. The emissions are being released into the atmosphere. They have to be part of our reduction goals as well. You lack adequate plans to achieve your goals, and that's why just this week you've been slammed in media for failing to be on track to meet your 2030 emissions targets. You're not yet taking the radical action required to get us out of this mess. This is partially understandable. You rely somewhat on central government, and the policies have been unreliable. This is not a reason to stop acting, however. You still have power, even in influencing central government. Declarations of climate urgency and the nuclear free movement both worked like this, local government taking the lead. We will soon be making similar demands of local governments around New Zealand, asking them to listen to their constituents and their consciences to take that first step. In November this year, the Climate Commission will be making recommendations to central government. they will very likely recommend the inclusion of cruise ship emissions in our targets. And while Central doesn't seem to care much about the climate, if councils like you have already taken that first step, we believe they will too. We need momentum. To get enough councils taking the step by November will be a challenge, and starting now will help a lot. We believe that you are the right council to take the lead in this, as you did, and you were one of the first to declare a climate emergency. If it helps, this is the sort of policy that's being picked up around the world already. The UK and the EU have chosen to include emissions from international shipping and aviation, including cruise ship emissions, into their trading schemes and targets from 2026. Others will follow shortly. I want to stress the first step in a plan to tackle cruise ship emissions is to stop subsidising the pollution that with ratepayers' money. Christchurch NZ takes ratepayers' money to sponsor the yearly New Zealand Cruise Ship Association conference and spends money on paid staff time and resources to train and administer the volunteer cruise ambassador program. Ratepayers are fed up with rate hikes. As council, you're obviously financially squeezed. And in this situation, we're still paying ratepayers' money to subsidize rich international tax-avoiding companies that are negative for us environmentally and economically. It is time to stop. Those of you who are left-leaning should align with ending the subsidies, because subsidizing big polluters isn't just, and it isn't putting our money where the need is greatest. Those of you who are more right-leaning politically should think about why are we actually interfering with the free operation of the market by putting in these subsidies. Shouldn't industries be allowed to thrive or fail based on their own merits without taking more money from ratepayers? If we are going to interfere in the market by subsidizing, shouldn't we put on subsidies where our community is going to get the greatest benefit? If so, the statistics we've quoted are clear that any other form of tourism would give us a better return on investment. In summary, what we want you to do is to count cruise ship emissions now in the overall emissions total in the inventory and count them in the city's climate targets. The statistic might be estimates not perfect, but the risks of inaction are greater. We also want you to actually put in a real plan, a radical plan, a serious plan to address these emissions. The first step of stopping all the subsidies. Thank you for your time. Are there any questions?
Absolutely spot on timing. Now, we've got external presenters coming in at 12 o'clock on the dot. So you're more than welcome if you want to go away, but you're more than welcome to come back at 12 o'clock and when we will have it for sure. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So hopefully you've received the hard copy and we'll email so you can look at the hyperlinks if you want to check that research. Thank you.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. Finally, we'll hear from Kevin Owen, who will speak to us regarding item 7, the Waka Terrace repair. Good morning.
Good morning, all. I'm the homeowner at 23 Intercop Place that bore the brunt of the Waka Terrace repair. The slip, hopefully a repair coming. Back in August in 21. I just wanted to show a few slides, brief slides, just to put into context some of the comments I'd like to talk about my personal situation. This is a photograph looking down from Waka Terrace onto my property. Actually, you can see there's quite a bit of debris there. There was approximately 40 truckloads taken away from the back there, and the trees had to be cut down. Everything came down onto the house. Here's another perspective. This is my courtyard that looks back up onto Waka Terrace. As you can see, quite a bit of dirt in there. Another perspective of it against the house. This is the second slip that occurred back in July 2023. That was 11 tonnes worth that came down, which had to be wheelbarrowed out. And this is what I look at for the last 2.5 years. The fence up there is the boundary of my property, and that's what I look at from my outdoor living and from my home. So the personal impact, the photographs are there just to put into context about my personal impact around this. The continued delays to the repair have been very stressful and frustrating for myself. I understand there are technical and legal issues around this. What has been frustrating is the continued and prolonged dealing of the legal issues. Arguably, we should have been perhaps at this meeting a year ago, looking at these options. It's 2.5 years going on to 3 years in August, as you realise. From a personal point of view, I've been wanting to retire for the last 12 months. I'm 68 this year, and I live alone in the place, and I'm a widower. I need to downsize my property. I need to move on so I can facilitate my retirement and have a comfortable retirement. At the moment, I feel I'm just in a holding pattern and unable to do anything around this. I would certainly urge that you look at option 2 in terms of dealing with it in a timely fashion and not look at the long-term option, which is only going to cause not only stress for me, but there's obviously a lot of Wakateras people who are very frustrated with the situation too, that I must acknowledge. I would also like to acknowledge that the council has been very efficient and has dealt with the slips in a very timely manner, and that's been great. The communication I've had around the slip with project manager Sandra Novus and latterly Jane Parfitt, General Manager, Acting General Manager, Infrastructure, has also been really good. So I appreciate that communication and engagement. However, I would certainly like you to really consider the option 2 and I guess just take away the stress and frustration for all concerned in this area. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Kevin. I certainly share your frustration, and it's very clear what really needs to happen. So I'm sure something will come forward from that. We have still got, we have got some time. Councillor Cotter, please.
Thank you for coming in to speak to us. Can I just be clear that, are you the property that would be purchased that's stated in the report if that option was taken up, and you'd be happy with that?
Yes, I would be. You'll note on page 90 in paragraph 513, it talks about my belief that I can't sell the place. That belief is actually based on some fact. I've had several real estate people who've been in the street, I've called them into the property, they look at it around the back and say, this is a significant barrier for you to even sell or consider selling.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Scandrick, please.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin, for coming in, and thank you very much for your kind words with regards to the council staff's support. I certainly hope that my colleagues around the table will support me in moving this in for the option 2, and thank you very much. I can only understand your frustration, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for your patience. Good on you.
Thank you.
Mate. Good on you. Okay, so we now move on to petitions, which we have none of. And before moving on to our staff reports, I'd like to advise that